Some interesting words from Rush Limbaugh on his broadcast yesterday. I just play it.
I actually think that we're trending toward secession. I see more and more people asking, what in the world do we have in common with the people who live in, say, New York? There cannot be a peaceful coexistence of two completely different theories of life, theories of government, theories of how we manage our affairs.
Wow, it's Krystal, not great. And just to give you an idea of what was reacted to, Amy Siskind, one of everybody's favorites on Twitter, was like, okay, fine, here's a proposed map. New York, California are sick of supporting red welfare states. She proposes a union between Canada, some of the blue states, calls red states #JesusLand. So I guess erasing all the people there who, necessarily aren't like even Democrats.
So she's basically saying to Rush Limbaugh, yes, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, and look, that's the problem, which is Rush apparently clarified that he's not advocating for it.
Here's what he said, his words. I know that there's a sizable and growing sentiment for people who believe that's where we're headed to, whether we want to get there or not, secession. Now, I didn't advocate for it. I never would advocate for secession. I'm simply repeating what I've heard. The clip we just played you, he's like, how can you have peaceful coexistence between these groups?
Right. I'm like,
so sounded pretty, he certainly wasn't decrying the idea of secession. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and this is what really bothers me. I'm not saying it's going anywhere or any of that. And it's even around the whole like rhetoric irresponsible, but it's just, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, which is that when you start to believe that politics is irreconcilable completely with democracy, that it takes you down a dangerous road. And it allows you to kind of adopt and think and go in certain directions, which are just not where we are right now as a country. Like if you go and you read our history, we've had far more divisive times and problems that we actually got through. And it took the issue of slavery to actually break everybody up. And I just don't think that that's where we are right now. So when people irresponsibly, both Amy Siskind and Rush Limbaugh, are putting forward these types of nonsense, it helps no one. I especially hate, that entire narrative, like blue states subsidizing red states, and then all these Republican senators being like, we're not going to bail out blue states. It's a great country.
Yeah.
Great cities. Yes, many of the people there are Democrats. Okay, fine. So what? I mean, it's their country too, and that's just, it bothers me whenever people talk.
It's a disgusting talking point for when Democrats, who supposedly care about the least of these, are like, we're done bailing out the poor people.
Right.
I mean, that's what are you doing right now?
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? It reminds me of when Hillary Clinton was like, I want all the places that were prosperous and growing, or however she phrased it. Like that's something to be proud of, that people who were struggling didn't see anything worthwhile in your agenda and in your candidacy. That's an embarrassment. You should be ashamed of that. But instead, they were like, great, we'll do more of that. Let's actually double down on that direction in particular. But with Rush here, I mean, look, I despise Rush Limbaugh. This man said that I posed nude when I was 14 years old and never bothered to clean it up. So this is like a loathsome, disgraceful human being. And this type of commentary could not possibly stand more against what we try to advocate for on this show, which is call out people who are powerful, people like Rush Limbaugh who have abused their perch of power, people who run things in this town who, by the way, only benefit from this view of politics where it's completely existential and where your true adversary and enemy is your neighbor or the blue state next door, versus the people here who can't get their act together to give the American people a tiny little bit of something to be able to get through winter during a pandemic and a mass depression. So I think this rhetoric, first of all, I think it's false. I think it's completely untrue. I think that people in this country are basically committed to, very similar things. They want to be able to have a decent life for themselves, for their families, some pride and some meaning in their lives, in their communities, some hope for their children. Like, it's pretty simple and pretty basic. And it's only people here who benefit, and people, by the way, who run major cable news networks, where the whole thesis and whole central premise is exactly what Rush Limbaugh is saying here. They're the only ones that benefit from this type of rhetoric of viewing your neighbors the state next door, the city, a few hundred miles away or whatever, as the real enemies and as the real adversaries.
I actually read an interesting, I think, theory of Limbaugh, where they essentially say that he knows very clearly that his job is just to keep people hooked to the radio in between ad reads. That's it. I mean, he's like pretty honest about it. By the way, he's making like $25 million a year at one point. He's a juggernaut, right? That's what this is actually all about.
Yeah.
And that's why, this type of rhetoric, when it's backed by that type of advertising model, doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, no, it's this is Taibbi. Hate it.
Yeah, he's right.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the new enemy to keep you glued to your TV, to keep you glued to the radio, whatever it is. And, it's done deep damage to this country because ultimately it does become a kind of manifesting of destiny where if enough people actually believe that this is true, it then manifests itself within the country.
Yeah, I mean, and I hate to use a Civil War analogy again, but there was this group of crackpots in the South called fire eaters who wanted secession, and then all of a sudden, boom, 5 years later, they became actually powerful, and not a lot of people saw it coming.
Next week on Rising, got another great week planned for you. More amazing guests, including we're going to have host of Bad Faith Podcast, Brianna Joy Gray is going to be back. Also friend of the show and editor-at-large of Jacobin, David Sirota, back in the house as well. Wall Street Journal columnist and author Sadhana Dume will also join us to discuss the over 250 million farmers and workers strike in India.
That's right. I've heard from a lot of you that you want that coverage, and so there it is.
Yeah.
Remember to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Don't forget to like and share as well, and we will see you all next week.
Have a great day, guys.